The Australian Grand Prix is less than 1 week away, and it's time to lock in our teams now. If you want to look at some starter templates to base your team off of, you're in the right place. Let's get straight into template teams, differential plays, budget building teams, and maximum point scoring teams. And also things to keep in mind while setting up your team to maximize your points going into the next weekend, which is the Chinese Grand Prix, which is a sprint weekend. So a lot of things to talk about. Let's get started right away. Welcome back. My name is Quinton from BoxBox F1 Fantasy, and thank you for being here. Starting with a classic. Right here we've got Charles Leclerc, Ferrari, Haas, the two Haas drivers, and Bottas and Antonelli. This team has become one of the standout favorites so far, what I've been seeing on Twitter or X or whatever, and on social media. There seems to be a consensus that this is what we would call like a template team or a meta team, one that a lot of people are going to start with, at least because it seems like a super safe bet. Now, diving into the stats here, we can see that this is quite a popular team given the percentage of teams that own these drivers. The standout here is Antonelli. He has only been selected by 15% of people, but Behrman, 58%, absolutely insane. And of course Ferrari, no surprise there, super undervalued at 23.3 million. And of course Haas, which was like the surprise B tier constructor for me, 34% of teams have Haas in them. Of course these numbers will change as we get closer to the weekend start, but you can see the trend here. This is quite a template team. Now the only caveat with this team is we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 assets in here that are powered by Ferrari engines and power units. That can either be really good or really bad. Now, they seem to be super reliable and the Ferrari hype is real, so this is a strong team if you're convinced by Ferrari, and if they keep their pace up in free practice sessions, I might be tempted to have one of my teams look something like this. Of course, there are some variations you can have with this. You can swap out Behrman for Ocon perhaps. We have got about 2.7 million budget left, so you've got some wiggle room. You might want to go with Racing Bulls maybe to get like an extra bit of budget to see if you can upgrade maybe Bottas to one of the other drivers. But Bottas is a pretty safe bet, and you're going to see him pop up through pretty much all of the teams that we're going to look at today. Now, this is like the template team. We have also what I would call splitting the risk team here, moving away from almost just Ferrari power units. Here we've got 3 Ferrari assets, well, Ferrari powered assets, I should say. We've got the 2 Haas drivers, and then Ferrari as a constructor. Then George Russell, who seems to be the clear favorite for winning the championship this year so far, if betting websites are anything to go off of. And it seems like Mercedes sandbagged the hardest during pre-season testing. The reason for this, there was a graph I saw that showed like the average top 10 fastest laps from all teams across testing in Bahrain, and Mercedes were the second slowest, which we know is, I'm so curious to see in practice where Mercedes actually stacks up. I quite like this one because we've got, like I said, 2 Mercedes powered assets, Russell and Alpine. Alpine seem to be like flying under the radar here. I think we're going to see a slight bump in their performance when they receive the Mercedes power, the most recent spec Mercedes power unit, when we get to the Australian Grand Prix. I like the call here of Hadjar. He seems to be popular among people at 30% owned. And of course, the two Haas drivers, we can't go wrong with them. They are very good value for money, and they are sure to score well if everything goes smoothly. And because we've got such a diversified team, we guard against DNFs caused by power unit failures. And if the projections are anything to go by, you could see about a $1 million value gain here. So we split the risk, get good points, and we gain budget as well. And that is what we like. Now, Max Team. I like this because you can never count out Verstappen. It seems like I'm not the only one who had this idea. 28% of people have Max Verstappen in their team in some shape, way, or form. And it's quite nicely balanced because we've got Mercedes in there who are bound to be one of the top scoring, if not the highest scoring constructor. And of course, we've still got the Haas driver in there, Haas constructor and Behrman as well, surely going to score well. And then we've also got Colapinto. Alpine, like I said, seem to be the underdogs, well, not the underdogs, seem to be flying under the radar, and we'll get a better idea of their true pace when we come to practice. And like I mentioned, of course, Bottas, with his 5-place grid penalty in Australia, is basically guaranteed to rise in price. So he's a good call. If there's one person I know I'm going to lock into my team, it's Bottas for sure. And the nice thing about this team is you've got 1 million still left in the budget, so you've got some flexibility going into next weekend's, well, 2 weeks from when I'm recording this, into the Chinese Grand Prix. So that 1 million just gives you a little bit of extra wiggle room to switch out a driver or constructor perhaps to prepare for the sprint weekend. This here is set to score pretty well, and in theory, the projections have them gaining about 0.6 million in value of this team as a whole. Now, proceeding to theoretical teams. All of these teams are theoretical, but what I mean by that is on F1 Fantasy Tools, you can filter teams by projected value scored, projected value gained, or you can set it up to gain max points or whatever it is that you want. Now, I'll just show you very quickly here. If you don't know this website, Formula One Fantasy Tools, let me just switch it here for you and we can have a look at it. So here we can see, so f1fantasytools.com, team calculator, and here on the right hand side you can choose who you want to include, exclude, etc. So I'm just going to reset all of this here, reset all of my columns, and if we sort by maximum points gained, we've got this team here, but let's start with maximum budget. So in theory, if you go with Haas, Racing Bulls, Russell, Leclerc, Hadjar, Behrman and Bottas, you will gain about 1 million in budget. Of course, there are a lot of questions around this because there are a lot of unknowns, like the odds here for Russell's price going up or down are pretty much the same, so the predicted price rise is basically null. So in reality, this budget gain will probably be a bit higher, but please check out this website, play around with this. If you want to include specific drivers, like I said, for example, I want Bottas in my team, so he's always in there. And let's say I absolutely want Ferrari in there, I can include them as well, and then it updates here. So this was the budget you need, and if you want to sort by points or budget gained, so you can see here a team with Ferrari, Racing Bulls, Leclerc and Antonelli will in theory rise 0.85 million, and it will just cost me 96 million. So please play around with this site. If everything goes well, on Wednesday I will be launching my own fantasy prediction tool. I'll still share some more details as soon as it launches, but it will be like an adjacent tool to F1 Fantasy tools. Their tool is much more advanced than anything I can make, but I've come up with my own prediction algorithms, risk labeling, and so on, which will provide even more information than you can find on F1 Fantasy tools. Not more information, just different information that will give you even more data to use when making decisions. So, but F1 Fantasy tools, check them out, use it, get used to the website. It will help you a lot. It has saved me so many DNFs and like totally changed the game for us fantasy team managers. Now back to our team here. The predicted points scored for this team here is 168. Probably it will be a bit more because there's a good chance Ferrari get as a constructor bonus for fastest pit stop or fast pit stops under 3 seconds, under 2.5 seconds potentially. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And also McLaren have been historically good with their pit stops as well. And the only negative I can see with this team is that you've got no budget left in the bank. So you're going to have very little wiggle room, if any at all, to make changes to your drivers come the Chinese Grand Prix. So keep that in mind. Always try to leave a little bit of budget in hand to make changes as needed. Now, if you want to go for maximum budget gain without getting silly and putting Racing Bulls and Haas in there, this is a team I would recommend. I played around with a few lineups on the F1 Fantasy Tools website, and this was about as safe team I could come up with, scoring well and gaining maximum budget as well. There are some other teams that gain like a point, are predicted to gain a 0.1 million more than this, but then it goes crazy to like VCarb and Haas and some, not premium drivers, if I can put it that way. But again, we've got the caveat, very heavy on the Ferrari power unit. There is good scoring potential, predicted 150 points, and we've got some exposure to Mercedes via Antonelli. And also we've got about 2.7 million in budget in hand if we want to change something for the Chinese Grand Prix. Just going off on a tangent a bit, the Chinese Grand Prix is a good chance to gain budget with our mid-tier or B-tier drivers. Because it's a sprint weekend, there's a better chance for them to score points because we've got the sprint race. And so if you want to take a risk on B-tier assets, you can put them in now, leave them until the Chinese Grand Prix, and then you can afterwards pivot towards a more premium oriented build. So keep that in mind, leave some money in the bank for transfers in China or after China. If you can, set up your team so that you only do one transfer after the Australian Grand Prix. That way you carry 3 transfers over to the week following the Chinese Grand Prix. So keep that in mind. I believe it's the Japanese Grand Prix after the Chinese one. Now for some spicy little differential plays. I had some fun putting these together, and this is actually one of the teams I'm strongly considering for my more risky team. I think it's my team 3, box cubed. And we've got 3 Ferrari powered assets as well, Charles Leclerc, Behrman, Ferrari. And then we've got Red Bull. Red Bull as a constructor is not used a lot in the teams. If we have a look here at our percentage owned, let's just manage our team here. If we look at the constructors, we can see only 10% of teams has Red Bull in them. Now this could be a good shout if you want to go against the grain, and perhaps we get lucky or unlucky, if you want to look at it that way, with a Ferrari or McLaren DNF or something like that. We can see more people have got McLaren, Mercedes and Ferrari in the teams, so if one of those other top 4 teams fares poorly, having Red Bull in one of your teams could be an excellent differential play. Like I said, excellent scoring potential, risk averse as well, because we've got the Ferrari in there. And this is also like a little test for our rookie drivers. Well, rookie driver in the form of Arvid Lindblad. Colapinto's got a bit more experience. He's got that Alpine that seems to be quite fast. And what I like about this team is we've got a predicted budget gain and also decent scoring potential with a predicted 164.7 points. So solid start, good spreading of risk across different constructors and teams. And if we needed to, we could trade out Red Bull, for example, if we wanted to change them for a B tier constructor, we could then do that. But as it is, this is a good lineup and setup for the Chinese Grand Prix as well. Constructors score very well on sprint weekends. Like, I would be happy with this in my team. This is one of the teams I am considering as such. Now, one more. I think this is the most, not necessarily far out play, but it's a bit different. I've seen other creators talk about this, specifically Rob. I just watched his video on this subject. Oscar Piastri is a good shout. Why? He's Australian Grand Prix. Good chance he gets driver of the day. If he just chugs along nicely, doesn't DNF, puts up a good show, chances are he's going to get driver of the day. And that is something that Formula 1 Fantasy Tools takes into account when calculating potential scores. This team here is set to score 153 points. Of course, if we 2 times Piastri and we've got driver of the day, extra 10 points, effectively 20 points for free. And of course, we're still quite heavy on the Ferrari. And then, of course, Bottas with his red penalty as well. So this is a good shout if you want to check it out. Coming up next on Monday is my ultimate guide on how to play Formula 1 Fantasy for 2026. Mistakes to avoid, how to play the game, how to actually navigate the website, what is a good starter team. I'll give you a safe team build, mid-risk and high-risk team so you can split your strategies and get the best chance to score well in the global league. So I'll walk you through from start to finish, and by the end of that video, you'll be ready for the Australian Grand Prix and beating your mates. And speaking of beating your mates, since we are mates, join my league and see if you can beat me. Use the code there on screen and join my fantasy league. Don't forget to follow me on X and Twitter, like this video, subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and I'd like to give a special shout out to Formula 1 Fantasy Hub, also known as Rob. That's the awesome dude, excellent content. Let's see if we can get into 10k subscribers before the Australian Grand Prix. He's so close, just about 200 subs away from that, so if you like this kind of content, be sure to check him out as well. Got an awesome community on X, so be sure to follow us there. This has been Quentin from BoxBox F1 Fantasy. I'll see you tomorrow, same time-ish, and same place for sure. Bye.